You know Jordan will pay. He always does. He's basically our backup wallet. That's what I heard. Word for word. From my own cousin Becca's mouth. She didn't know I was on the line. Didn't know her Bluetooth had accidentally dialed me from her purse while she was at brunch. Laughing, drinking mimosas, and tearing me apart like I was some clueless ATM they could hit up whenever rent was due. Let me back up a second. I'm Jordan, 35. Financial controller at an architecture firm in downtown Chicago. I've worked my way up from nothing. Grew up with just my dad in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the south side. No silver spoon, no family inheritance. Just grit, late nights, and numbers that made more sense to me than people ever did. My dad passed 6 years ago. The cancer didn't give us time. One moment, he was joking about me finally buying a house, and the next, I was alone, standing in a funeral home picking out a casket I couldn't afford. I remember looking up from the price list and seeing my uncle Stan and his wife Carol in the corner, whispering. Becca was there too, all crocodile tears and hollow hugs. 3 days after the funeral, they asked if I could help cover their mortgage, just until things stabilized. I didn't even think twice. They were family. I had no one else. I signed the checks, pushed off my own plans, and told myself Dad would have wanted it this way. That was the beginning. Over the next 5 years, I paid off Becca's student loans when she couldn't handle the interest, covered Carol's knee surgery when insurance denied the claim, and bailed Stan out of a failed landscaping business he started with zero experience. Each time, I heard the same words. Just until things get better. They never got better. I just kept paying. That morning, the brunch call was supposed to be my one day off in weeks. I'd been working 12-hour days, prepping for quarterly audits. I was at home, eyes burning from spreadsheets, heating up leftover Thai food when my phone lit up with Becca. I answered, thinking maybe she needed help with something. What I got was a front row seat to their real opinions. You should have seen his face when I told him my tuition was due, she said between bites. I hadn't even registered for the semester, but he just nodded and sent the money like always. Then Carol chimed in. Well, he doesn't have kids or a wife. What's he going to do with all that money? Might as well help family. And Stan, good old Uncle Stan, closed it out with a laugh. Kid thinks he's the provider of the family or something. Long as we keep saying thank you, he won't catch on. My hand was frozen on the microwave handle. I didn't breathe, didn't blink. I just stood there as the sound of forks clinking and their laughter bounced around my kitchen like bullets ricocheting off the walls. I felt hollow, betrayed. But more than that, stupid. So stupid. I'd skipped vacations, postponed dental surgery twice, said no to promotions that required relocation because they needed me close by. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with creaky pipes so they could stay in their 4-bedroom suburban home. And all this time, they saw me not as family, but as funding. That's when something snapped. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I didn't even hang up right away. I just listened, let their words sink in like poison. Then I opened a fresh spreadsheet. I named it something I should have 5 years ago. Exit plan. Line by line, I started documenting every payment, every dollar, every lie. But the twist? That wasn't the worst of it. Later that night, I logged into the county property records. I had gifted Uncle Stan a plot of land years ago, said he could build a retirement place. Guess whose name was listed as the seller of that same land last week? Not mine, his. And guess what? It was being sold to a luxury real estate developer for 6 times what I paid for it. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, hands numb. That's when I realized they hadn't just been using me. They'd been planning to profit off me, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. My hands were still shaking when I printed the property listing. There it was, the land I bought for Uncle Stan, listed under a shell company he'd set up 2 years ago. They'd renamed it Fresh Horizons Development. Sleek, professional, deceptive. They were about to make over $300,000 off my gift. No heads up, no thank you, no intention of sharing the profit. Just a quiet transfer, a flashy listing, and a fat payout, all behind my back. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad and started feeling furious. The betrayal was no longer passive. It was strategic, it was surgical, and it was something they'd never have pulled off if I hadn't handed them the scalpel. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the thick folder I kept for tax season. Receipts, wire transfers, canceled checks, everything I'd blindly sent to cover Becca's tuition, Stan's business debt, Carol's so-called surgeries. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was being a good man. All I'd really been was a fool. I worked through the night, logging every transaction into a spreadsheet. A sick part of me already knew the number was going to be high, but nothing prepared me for the total. $112,436. That was what I'd spent on them in 6 years. That number didn't include missed opportunities, like the house I never bought, or the MBA I postponed. It didn't count the emotional cost, the countless nights I lay awake wondering if I was doing enough. And it sure as hell didn't count the way they laughed at me over brunch. The worst part? They never once asked how I was doing. Not when I was passed over for promotion. Not when I ended up in urgent care after a panic attack. Not even when I spent Christmas alone last year, because the roads were bad, while they posted family dinner photos online. They never checked in, they just checked out of my life, until they needed something. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I got selfish. I called my bank and flagged every joint account I'd ever helped them open. Closed the co-signed credit cards. Changed every password. I checked my credit report for damage, found 2 inquiries I didn't authorize, both from loan companies in Uncle Stan's area. I called them. They confirmed someone had attempted to open accounts using my name, my SSN, and my address. I felt sick. Becca hadn't just lied about needing tuition. She'd given my personal information to her father. He tried to open debt under my name. I should have been destroyed, but all I felt was quiet. A strange, eerie stillness, the kind that comes right before a storm. They didn't know it yet, but I was about to become the hurricane they'd pretended I could never be. The next morning, I made a burner email account. I sent a message to the contact listed on the land development site, posing as an interested buyer. Within 4 hours, I got a response. A cheerful assistant named Dana set up a call with the owner and founder of Fresh Horizons. She said his name was Stanley Richards. Of course it was. I grinned. The trap was almost set. But then came the twist I didn't expect. That evening, I received a letter from my mortgage lender. I hadn't missed any payments. My credit score was still excellent. But someone had requested a withdrawal from my escrow account, an account only I should have access to. I called the bank immediately. "Sir," the rep said after checking the logs, "we had someone on the line earlier today. They provided your full name, date of birth, SSN, and the answers to your security questions. They even had your account number. Said they were updating auto payment settings." My mouth went dry. They weren't just stealing behind my back anymore. They were trying to drain me directly. I hung up and opened the group text I had with them. Becca, Stan, and Carol. There it was. A message from Stan sent just hours ago. "Hey Jordan, hope all's good. Any chance you can send over that $5,000 we talked about last month? Property stuff's moving fast. Just until closing, then we'll be all set." My stomach dropped. There had never been a conversation last month. He'd planted a lie, a fake memory, a cover in case I caught on. They were trying to wipe me out before I even saw it coming. That's when I realized. They weren't just using me. They were preparing to erase me, and they almost did. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Becca's smirk, heard Stan's fake chuckle, felt that deep, nauseating twist in my gut when the bank told me someone had tried to empty my escrow account with my full information, my security questions, my account number. That wasn't just betrayal. That was theft in progress. By morning, I had a plan. Step 1. Bait the trap. I messaged Stan from my personal email, calm and friendly, as if I hadn't just uncovered a full-blown financial ambush. "Hey, just saw your message about the $5,000 for closing. I'll need the buyer's info and some paperwork for my records. Should be able to transfer it by Friday. Sound good? He responded within minutes. Perfect! Knew I could count on you, champ. Appreciate you covering the gap. I'll have Becca send over the docs. Becca. Of course. She emailed me a PDF that looked official enough to fool a layperson. But I'm not a layperson. I work with contracts for a living. And this one? It was sloppy. No attorney name, no escrow details. Just a vague buyer reference and a closing address, which I recognized immediately. It was my land. The same lot I bought in 2016. The one I transferred to Stan, temporarily, because the family might need it one day. He never gave it back. And now he was selling it to a developer and making me pay for the privilege. I called in sick, first time in years. Spent the day digging through Cook County public records, banking logs, and Becca's old LinkedIn posts. Every new detail made my stomach turn. The LLC Stan created? Becca was listed as the secretary. Carol was the treasurer. The entire family had turned my generosity into their private business. They didn't just scam me. They built a company on my back. That night, I attended their soft launch party. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Becca had posted about it on Instagram. An upscale rooftop bar. Cocktails, charcuterie, fairy lights. All smiles, clinking glasses, fake success stories. I stood across the street in the dark, watching through the windows, phone in hand, recording. Not them, me. Today's March 18th, I said into the camera. They just tried to take $5,000 from my escrow account. Here's the fake contract. Here's the LLC they built with my land. And here's the kicker. I flipped my phone and zoomed in on a large canvas banner hanging above the rooftop bar. Fresh Horizons Development, celebrating our first property sale. The address below? Mine. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I left. I had enough. Step 2. Bring in backup. I met with Michael the next morning, my coworker from accounting. He'd gone through something similar with his parents and a fraudulent loan. He gave me the name of a real estate fraud attorney, a woman named Clarissa Chen. I called her, explained everything. She didn't blink. I'll file a restraining order on the property immediately, she said. They won't be able to close. And if we can prove they used your identity to access your escrow account, that's criminal. Finally, someone on my side. But the real twist came later that day. I was on my lunch break when I got an email from Becca. Subject line, "You're going to regret this." Inside, a forwarded message. It was a confirmation from my HR department. Someone had submitted a request under my name to direct deposit my paycheck to a new account. Not mine, not even in my bank. I stared at it, my pulse pounding in my ears. She hadn't just gone for the land, or the savings. She was trying to steal my paycheck, my livelihood. They weren't just manipulative. They weren't just greedy. They were dangerous. And now, it was war. Comment the number 1 if you want to see how I take down the entire operation and expose my family to everyone. You don't just destroy someone's life and walk away with a cocktail in hand. That was the thought circling my mind as I stared at the fake payroll request Becca submitted. She had used my name, my employee ID, even copied the exact tone of how I normally write work emails. I might have missed it, if it hadn't gone to a manager who knew me well enough to call and confirm. If it had slipped through, my next paycheck, my rent, bills, food money, would have been sent to a bank account I didn't own. This wasn't a mistake. It was a hit job. And that's when my revenge stopped being emotional and became surgical. Step 1, shut the operation down. I worked with Clarissa, my attorney, to file an emergency injunction. Within 48 hours, the sale of the land was frozen. The developer wasn't happy, but once they saw the paperwork showing I had been the original purchaser, with no formal release, they backed off fast. Stan tried to call. 12 times. Left voicemails that started as calm explanations and ended in thinly veiled threats. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I emailed them. As of this message, I'm requesting all financial interactions between us cease immediately. Any further contact will be considered harassment. Legal proceedings are in motion. Govern yourselves accordingly. I CC'd Clarissa, and I made sure it came from a brand new email account, one I'd never used for family before. They knew. This wasn't the old Jordan anymore. Step 2. Expose everything. Remember that rooftop launch party? Turns out Becca live-streamed parts of it to her entrepreneurship community. I downloaded the video, captured the exact moment Stan toasted to family support while standing in front of a poster with my property address printed in bold. We created a compilation. Side-by-side clips. Me walking the empty land in 2016 after buying it in full. Their live stream celebrating the sale. Screenshots of the forged contract Becca sent me. The attempted paycheck theft confirmation. And the voicemail of Stan saying, "You're making a big mistake, kid. You don't cross family." Clarissa filed for damages. Fraud, identity theft, unauthorized business use of personal property, and more. I sent the evidence package to the development firm, to their vendors, and, this part was delicious, to Becca's University Ethics Board. She was enrolled in a graduate program for nonprofit management. Yeah, nonprofit. But here's where it gets even better. Step 3. Flip the script publicly. A month after freezing the property, I hosted a gathering. Not a family dinner, not a pity party. I invited everyone from work. The friends I distanced myself from, Michael, Eleanor, people who had stood by quietly when I was shouldering an invisible burden. We met on that same plot of land, my land. The grass had grown wild, but I left it that way. I wanted it raw, honest, mine. I stood on a fold-out stage and told them everything. I didn't name names, didn't need to. I just told the story of a man who gave until he bled, because he thought that's what love was. And how sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't, "I forgive you." It's, "I see you now." They clapped. They hugged me. They thanked me for speaking truth. But right before the sunset, the twist came. Michael pulled me aside. "Hey, I thought you should know. I was chatting with someone on LinkedIn. They're in HR at a new startup Becca just joined." I blinked. "She got hired?" "Yeah," he said, pulling up the company site. "She's listed as Director of Donor Relations at a charity incubator funded by your former developer, the one who backed out." I took his phone. There she was, Becca Richards, smiling in a pantsuit, holding a clipboard. Underneath her photo, it read, "Former co-founder of Fresh Horizons Development, which successfully closed its first property deal in 2023. My jaw clenched. They sold the story, not the land. The story. They were pitching themselves as community developers who made a 6-figure exit. And the worst part? They were using my name, my success, as proof of their credibility. They tried to turn my life into a resume bullet point. They failed. After I found Becca's new job listing, where she claimed credit for selling my land, under a company built on forgery, I didn't rage. I didn't call. I didn't even message her. I built my case. Quietly, precisely. Clarissa and I gathered every piece of documentation, proof of the fake payroll request, screenshots of the forged closing documents, the email chain showing them trying to get $5,000 from me for processing fees, and, most importantly, the digital forensics that traced the IP address of the attempted HR fraud back to Stan's Wi-Fi network. That was the nail in the coffin. The next step, press charges. We filed a formal complaint for attempted identity theft, wire fraud, and unlawful use of personal property for business gain. The authorities moved faster than I expected. Maybe it was the neatness of the evidence. Maybe it was the voice recording of Stan threatening me. Within 3 weeks, Stan was served. Becca was called in for questioning. And Carol. Well, turns out signing contracts under someone else's name is very illegal when the documents are tied to real estate and money. But I wasn't done. Remember the startup Becca had just joined? I sent their HR team a polite, detailed email, included legal filings, redacted for confidentiality, and a simple closing line. I thought you'd want to be aware before associating your foundation with someone currently under investigation for financial misconduct. They responded within 36 hours. Becca's name disappeared from their website by the end of the week. No press release, no farewell post, just gone. And the icing on the cake? The development firm that had nearly purchased the property, Fresh Horizons' supposed first big success, sued Stan and Carol for contractual misrepresentation. Apparently, when you lie about owning land and get caught mid-sale, buyers get mad. They demanded return of their $20,000 deposit plus damages. Stan didn't have it. Carol filed for early retirement. And Becca? She went completely silent. No new posts, no brunch photos, no girl boss quotes about resilience. The entire empire they built on my back collapsed like a house of credit card debt. Now, I live differently. I moved into a condo with actual sunlight. I go to therapy every Thursday. I sleep without checking my phone at 3 a.m. for financial emergencies that were never mine to fix in the first place. Last weekend, I walked past that old plot of land. It's quiet now, overgrown, still mine. Maybe one day I'll build something there. Not for them, not for status, but for me. Because I've learned something they never did. You don't rise by stepping on people. You rise by remembering who you are when no one's clapping. And I'm done being their wallet. I'm building something better. Out of truth, not guilt. Comment the number 2 if you felt that twist, and subscribe if you want more stories where karma comes with receipts.